I think the perception in Maine is that we have so much water. It's such a water-rich state. What are we worried about? What are we, what's being exported is just this little teeny fraction of what we have, and because we're so lucky, shouldn't we want to be willing to share? Because others are not so lucky. And I get that argument, I really do, but I think we have to look at it from a sustainable standpoint. Things are changing, and maybe it's not as abundant as we believe. It's groundwater. We can't see it.
Right, exactly. And it's not as abundant, I mean, it's not uniformly abundant around the state. There are some places where you have a lot more water than people, and along the coastal communities, there are places where, particularly in the summer, there's a lot more people than water.
Right.
And they're actually pulling in salt water because they're pulling so hard on their aquifers. So it's a very, I mean, all water is local.
Absolutely. And what you just said about the salt water, did you read that recent article about ground subsidence in the coastal communities? Yes. And how, and we're seeing it in these storms like that last one in January, and it's just, they're going to have needs if their water is salinated or whatever. I mean, we need to look at that. We need to think about that on a longer range basis than we are.
Yes.
I think that's part of the problem is we've been so short term, what's just in front of us. And that's what we're hoping to address with our ordinance is, let's look a little bit farther down the road. Let's not just look at what's immediately in front of us and what we could possibly avoid.
Absolutely what you could possibly avoid. Because when you look at your near neighbor who is tied into a 45-year contract, and say any contamination of that aquifer, would they have any backup sources?
Right, right.
No, they may not.
They may not.
They may be stuck buying back from Poland Spring.
Absolutely. And that has happened in places and
Yes.
Around the, and I think the fact remains that that water that Freiburg is relying on, it's public, and that Poland Spring is pulling from, and that another private water company is profiting from, it all comes from aquifers.
Yeah, and most towns, communities just don't have the resources to delineate aquifers within their boundaries. It's just, I mean, the state does a rough count, particularly of the big sand and gravel aquifers, but they definitely don't have a pinpointed handle on the water resources of the state. And I think they're struggling at this point trying to gather those data.
Right.
So they can form some policy.
Yeah. So it's interesting then that bills that want to kind of tighten the reins and look at some controls are not going through.
That is absolutely true. And it has been. I mean, it's been a struggle for some of the supporters of LD 1111 to just try to keep it alive.
Right.
And get some votes, because if you talk to individual legislators, it seems like a reasonable thing.
Absolutely.
And yet, when they come out of certain committee meetings or they've met with lobbyists, then all of a sudden it's not so reasonable, and language gets changed, and the bill has gone nowhere.
Right. And I guess I don't get, and I'd be curious to know, because you've been to a lot of those more meetings than I, where do you think the resistance is? What is the sort of nugget that's keeping?
Seem to be a couple of them. Of course, there's the major extractor, which in this case would be Poland Spring or Blue Triton, the owner. But there's also some community water districts who are, I'm going to call them, for lack of a better word, stranded. Look at the town of Rumford, where the paper mill used to be a major user of water for them. And as the mill keeps cutting back, they've got water, but they don't have the use, and so they're having a problem with capital flow. And so they're willing to sell water in order to try to keep the district afloat.
Wow. I'm sure it kind of comes down to ratepayers. So
does.
No pun intended, but it's a trickle-down thing, right?
Yeah.
And so ratepayers are looking at, well, if I can pay less for my water because it's kind of subsidized, basically, right?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, if you've got a big user willing to come in and pay, they don't pay a lot. They pay the rate that probably the paper plant paid, but the average household is paying less than $1 a day for a couple hundred gallons. So that's not a lot of them.
Right.
A couple cents, a couple of tenths of a cent for
and
10
yet for
gallons,
some
yeah.
people it's a lot of money. It's
Yeah, and
another bill.
exactly. It's
So,
another bill.
Yeah.
But for somebody like Poland Spring, who is getting 20, 30 gallons for a penny
Yeah.
and selling it, isn't it $1 and something for?
It's crazy. Yeah, sometimes it's even more. It depends where you buy it. If you're buying it at a convenience store, sometimes, it's much as like $2.19 for a little half-liter
pint.
bottle or whatever. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
and I think in Denmark it's a little different because there's no water district. Everybody's private wells.
Right.
And so I think there's less of a perception of, it kind of goes both ways. You don't get the benefit of a lower rate. They don't have to put in as much because they're just relying on the law of absolute dominion because they
Right.
own property.
Right.
And they can extract
Yes.
by the way Maine law is. So they are, and we've created this ordinance to kind of put some guardrails on it, but still it's 106 million gallons per year that they're able to extract.
Right.
So that's a lot. And I guess
Yeah.
our fear is what's to stop them or another company from coming in and tapping into our other aquifer or the same, and taking more. I mean, at what point do you say, wait a minute, enough,
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of one straw, 2 straws.
Right.
Could they take twice as much?
Right, right. So for some of us on the committee, that's a real concern. We just feel like we recognize that there is a permittee there. That's probably not going to change anytime soon. And they have, according to their permit, they're allowed that amount. So, but we just want to be able to look at alert and action levels because some of us feel there's a greater chance in the future that we may reach those. They haven't yet, presumably. I mean, they came darn close in 2016, but if there's another period of drought or whatever, we want to know that we're protected, that it's not going to deplete.
The shallower wells in town
Right.
that are in that same aquifer.
Or that very aquifer. I mean, that's old water. I think maybe this is an American thing, but it's like the Big Rock Candy Mountain, right? I mean, we just think that there's this unlimited kind of natural resource that we have.
Well, it's always hard with groundwater because you can't see it.
Right.
You can't see it, but I mean, you look around the country and I mean, there are places in California where the land has dropped 35 feet because they sucked all the water out from underneath them.
Right. So ground subsidence, and that's starting to happen a little bit here. And I was just listening to an interesting program about LD 2003, and they were bringing up how, the NIMBY attitudes, and I get that, when it's happening, people are incentivized. When it's not happening in your backyard, everybody's just,
It's not a big deal.
what's the problem? Yeah.
Right, yes.
So really, with the major extractor in this state, which is Poland Spring, Blue Triton, they're in what? You know this better than I.
You want to know towns?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a list. They're still extracting a little bit from Poland, but they've pretty much tapped out the Poland Spring area. The next biggest one they have, I know, is Hollis. Yeah, because I actually helped design parts of that. Not the lines, of course. They don't let us touch the lines, but anything that the workers have to drink. Yeah.
And that was when you were doing your job as an
engineer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. of course, Denmark, Freiburg, and I put those together because they're the same aquifer.
They are.
They are the same aquifer. They're
That's
just different
Cold
points.
Spring?
They call it Cold Spring, but if you look at the map, it's all part of the Saco River aquifer.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And Dallas Plantation, way up there because it's plantation. Kingfield, town of Rumford, and town of Lincoln, both old paper mill plants where the biggest user has pretty much gone by the wayside, and Poland Spring says, oh, we'll take that extra water.
So those are the water districts, and those are
the
both
water
45
districts, yeah.
years, right?
Those are the, Rumford is, I think Rumford is, and I thought Freiburg was. I
Yeah.
don't know about Lincoln.
I have a funny feeling they just extended that contract, but I wouldn't, yeah. I
I'm
don't
not
wanna-
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know, for instance, I think part of the argument against LD 1111 was that they felt if we're going to invest all this money in infrastructure, and then we want to know that it's, you know, protected for a length of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to say that in Denmark, when they set up shop, it was for 3 years, and they didn't have an issue
Any
with
qualms
that.
at that
No,
time?
No.
No.
So that doesn't really hold water with me.
Right, right. I mean,
It's it's such a profitable thing, water extraction and bottling and exportation. I mean, like you said earlier, what are people willing to pay for a half liter of water
oh yeah.
if they're on a road trip and they're thirsty and they walk into a 7-Eleven? Now, I know, I don't even know if those exist anymore, but I know that the water extractor is not getting all of that profit, but there's a good chunk of it.
There's pretty good profit in water.
Right.
I mean, considering that.
Especially if you're not paying for it.
Right, you're not paying for the water, you're paying for the property taxes.
Right.
And you do pay for it's a one-time fee for the infrastructure put in, that you put in the piping, the pump station, stuff like that.
And in Denmark's case, it was sizable. This is another reason that even on a 3-year permit, they were
Yep.
still willing to run pipeline from West Denmark all the way out to 302 in Freiburg. Because part of our ordinance, the one thing that the drafters of the original ordinance did was to say, we don't want all those trucks on our roads.
Right.
So if you're going to do this, if you want to take from Denmark, you're going to have to find some way to get it out to a
To a-
major route.
Right, and putting it right next to the Freiburg draw-off made the most sense, of course.
Yeah,
Trucks come right in, they can take from either side and
right.
come right back out onto 302.
Yeah. So that involved certainly going across other people's land, through their land, when it wasn't, they didn't own all that land between Cold Spring.
So
where they had
rights
their-
of way.
So rights of way. So yeah, they did a sizable investment, and that was based on the 3-year contract.
So
Yeah, so that's
if
that,
it made sense then, it definitely makes sense now.
right, right. I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Probably even more so.
So we know the length of contract, the resistance for the legislators.
Yeah, I think some of them do hear from their constituents, either the water districts. We know that Maine Rural Water testified on behalf of Blue Triton. So this is like small water districts and water companies all over Maine, thinking that this is another source of revenue for
Right.
their under-capitalized utilities. I think, in a way, that some of that's short-sighted, because some of these small utilities are going to be scrambling in the future
Right.
to actually to get enough water. Because if the contracts are based on what the safe yield is now, that may not be what you have for safe yield in the future.
Correct.
So that's I mean, and it doesn't take long
Right.
for more demands to pop up, or for aquifers can change.
To
Can
dry,
change.
yeah,
they can dry.
They can dry. They're not unlimited. But so does that get into then privatization?
Privatization, that's been a sort of a pendulum in the whole water industry, back and forth and back and forth. I can give you a little history.
Yeah, please do.
The city of Portland burned to the ground in 1863, most of it. The old part area didn't get touched, but you see a lot of newer houses. It's like, and so the city said, we have to have a supply that would basically be inexhaustible for us. We can put out the fires, because they couldn't put out the fires. So they actually went all the way to Sebago Lake, 17 miles away, and started building. And it took a long time to build, but it was a water company at that time, private equity, that built the original pipeline between the bottom end of Sebago Lake into.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But over time, rates kept going up, and people became very dissatisfied with mostly the rates. And I mean, this was just, all I did was lay down the pipe. Matter of fact, the original 1867 intake structure is still there. You
You're
can
kidding.
see it. I'm not kidding, it's still there.
Whoa.
It's not in use, but it's still there. So in 1908, there were enough very upset people that it went to referendum, and they voted to buy out the water company and start a water district,
Okay.
and join forces with South Portland and Westbrook and all around. And the water district was born at that time. And it's been a district ever since, but you get this back and forth, and people say, oh, our district isn't good, we should sell our assets and become a private. Well, that's not always a great idea. What we found is that private companies are beholden, as we said, to their shareholders. They are not beholden to their
Right.
customers. And so the only way you have any real say is to have a district, which I found to be the best form of water system operation. Water departments, as parts of the town, they try to balance, But so oftentimes what we find is that if the income exceeds the operating expenses of the water system, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need a road paved. Let's take it out of the water fund instead
Yeah.
of saving it for the infrastructure. But if you're a water district, you can't do that. I mean, it's
Right.
like, this is all for the infrastructure of the water and the operations. So I've worked
But-
all over.
Yeah. But now with entities such as Poland Spring coming in and saying, we can help you out with that, it kind of, even the water district structure
Yes.
is then on the verge of privatization, isn't it, to some
Well,
extent?
yeah.
I mean, there's that, it's a hybrid kind of.
It's a hybrid. I would think, yeah. And I'm not even sure about how the rules would work around that.
Right. As I stated earlier, like Denmark is all private wells. And so there's not that district to kind of politicize or whatever the process. But
Right.
but nevertheless, there are people who feel like they've been really excellent neighbors and are have no qualms about them extracting and exporting water from Denmark. And I think that's been helped by their practices, frankly. I mean, there are times when if Denmark has need of something or a dam needs repair or whatever, they've been there to kick in a few bob,
Yeah.
And I think that makes that muddies the water even further, because you have that, I don't know what you would call it. It's just, it's complicated.
It is complicated because it's a long-term relationship,
Right.
and they're not exactly like a resident.
Right.
So yeah, I can see it as a complicated relationship, and I think that might be another part of why some of the legislatures are a little afraid to touch it.
Conflicted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, because it's becoming more and more of an issue. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
did you read all the Times articles about water and our disappearing groundwater? And
Yes, it was a very good series.
very good
Very good
series.
series.
And it makes you think, because while it may not be happening here, there's probably a lot of places where they didn't think it would happen there.
Oh yeah,
And it is.
it definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah, the northern part of the Ogallala aquifer is getting more and more difficult to farm in the plains area.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the southern states are overdrawing what they're supposed to be taking. But it's very
Right.
hard. I mean, you'll end up with actually, and there have been state boundary fights when an aquifer crosses state boundaries, which actually your aquifer crosses state boundaries. It goes into New Hampshire, starts in New Hampshire and works its way down.
Oh, right, if it's
Yeah.
Saco, exactly, because
Saco,
it
yeah.
originates in, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, though, when you draw those lines in the sand.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can see
well,
on a
see.
global level, it just can create real problems. I actually didn't know that about Cold Spring being part of the greater, of the...
Greater Saco.
Yeah, yeah. You might know this, Kathy. What is the other aquifer in Denmark?
I don't know. I'll have to go look at the map.
Yeah, I think
'Cause
it's
I
a
do-
smaller
yeah.
one, because we were asking the hydrologist, we wanted to
Yeah.
know just how many aquifers are there in Denmark? Like, what's the
Couple of
possibility of somebody else maybe coming in and saying, hey, we want to buy we bought this property and we're going to extract. Just how likely is that?
I don't even know if there are any state reports on safe yield for the smaller ones. We in Bridgeton have 2 relatively small aquifers that we with the water district withdraws from the little aquifer south of around the origin of Willett Brook. And then there's another aquifer on Salmon Point, but that one's pretty vulnerable just because there's a lot of camps
Right.
and things on septic systems out in that general area. So that'd probably be a source of last resort, because Lord knows what's in that water.
So is Bridgeton kind of protected in that sense from?
Well, and we're protected from large-scale extraction because we don't have it to extract.
Right.
And that's one thing. I mean, you're next town over,
Right.
and you have these huge, big aquifers, and here we are, bigger town, but we don't.
Right.
Not evenly distributed.
Yeah. It's such an amazing, I mean, you're a scientist, you know. I just think because it isn't visible what's under there, we just don't, I don't know, we just don't respect it, maybe?
I think so. I don't even, a lot of people don't even think that there's water down under there until they need a personal well for their house. It's like, oh, of course there's like at least 2 or 3 gallons a minute. We can get that,
Right.
which you can. I mean, almost any place in the state of Maine, you can get 2 or 3 gallons a minute. It may smell like rotten eggs, may have a little iron, but it's water.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just wonder sometimes, is it me? Am I just imagining that this is a problem?
No, you're not just imagining this problem. And it does concern me that Poland Spring went from like a family-owned business back in the day to a subsidiary of a very large food company in Nestle as the new owner. And Nestle sold it a few years ago, and now it's a hedge fund. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, because the hedge fund has no real interest or expertise in the water as a life-giving thing. It's just a way to get
make
money.
Right. Right.
So there's that. I mean, that's a concern. It's a new way. It's a new way we can make money.
Right. Right. And it's only recently too, I think, that water is on. There are water futures, just like oil and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So there's going to be
And there's-
more and more private equity or whatever hedge funds that are going to be
Pushing.
coming
In
to-
California, there's what's called paper water.
What's that?
What that is technically it's a water right. But the thing is, the water actually available 90% of the time. It's only available about 10% of the time when when they're having the incredible storms that they've been having this winter. All the water rights in California can be temporarily fulfilled. But as soon as that water goes away, you have a right to water, but you have no water. So you have paper water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people in California have paper water.
So if you actually think of that like, yeah, money in the bank that you supposedly have, but it's not
there, and it's not earning interest.
Right.
No, it's not doing
And even
anything.
if you manage to put it under your mattress, it's not worth anything, right?
No.
But wow, that's kind of mind-boggling.
Oh, Western water law is crazy stuff. Colorado has more water lawyers than any other state. It's insane.
Yeah.
You don't own the rain that falls on your land in Colorado. You don't have the right to that.
So you can't collect it?
You can't. You're not supposed to collect it. That's not to say
Wow.
people don't, but you're not supposed to collect it. It's owned by whomever bought the water right to that
That's
piece of
insane.
land, because it doesn't go. Water rights don't go with land out west.
That's almost as crazy as the law of absolute dominion.
Yes.
Or maybe even crazier, who knows?
Yes.
It's just, I don't know.
It is. I mean, it's such a precious substance, and yet we treat it like dirt, and we treat
Yeah.
dirt pretty bad.
Yeah, that's
So-
true. That's another point.
Yeah.
Well, that was part of our reason for wanting to look at the ordinance too, was that when it was created, did anybody even know what PFAS was?
Oh God, no.
Right.
No, we couldn't measure it.
Right.
We couldn't detect it. We knew that that it was being made, but at the time the levels were too low for us to detect. When I first got into water, we felt really proud of ourselves that we could detect down to parts per million.
Wow.
And now they're like way below parts per billion to be able to detect things. So, I mean, so you'd think back in the day, you were drinking pure water because we couldn't find anything in it. Well, that doesn't mean there wasn't anything there. We just couldn't detect it.
Right. Right.
And it's like it used to drive me crazy in the lab. 60,000 chemicals, organic chemicals in production in this country, and we can only detect maybe a few thousand of them accurately at low levels.
Wow.
So, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's getting by the boards.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny. It's a ticklish situation because there have been representatives of the state's major extractor, Poland Spring, in our public at several meetings, and the issue of whose water it is has come up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told in no uncertain terms at one meeting when asked, when I said something about our water,
Mm-hmm.
I was challenged that it wasn't our water. And I said, well, whose is it? And it's just interesting when you get into that.
Right, because for the surface waters, though the state technically owns the surface waters, unless they have deeded portions of them to various water entities, like the Portland Water District owns, quote unquote, a certain portion of Sebago Lake.
Right.
But we have no such legal
Right.
entity around groundwater, and we should.
We should, and I think most people who have a well feel like it is their water. Do you know what I mean? It's
Oh, yeah.
on their land, and
Right.
they're the ones who paid for the driller to go down however many feet and set up a whole pump and system in their home that
Right.
brings them water. So it's a very interesting and sometimes very emotional topic.
It is a very emotional topic because I think most people, you don't think about how much water you use in a day and what you use it for besides drinking, of course. And I mean, there's the washing up, and there's the
Showering,
personal
there's dishes,
sanitation, and all those kinds of things that go along with having an adequate and safe supply. And But we do. Once you get the well in the ground, you tend to take it for granted.
Yeah, and I have to admit, even though I know how much is coming out and going away, I'm still, on a personal basis, I'm conservative with water. Like
Right.
to me, it's like, that's not something, it's almost a moral kind of thing, where I think,
Right.
this is such a precious resource, why would I waste it? You know, I don't get it. And I also know so many people go without it, or would just scream if they saw me just running water while I'm brushing my teeth or something, and see it go down the drain. But, so it is emotional, and I think, ironically, for a lot of people, it's just a given. And that's why it can get really controversial.
Yep. It's like, of course I've got
Yeah.
my water.
What's the problem?
Underneath my house.
It's just that much off the top of Sebago Lake. It's what evaporates. It's nothing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Tell them that in Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
4 inches of rain a year and 8 feet of evaporation.
Oof. Yeah. No, I know. And that way we're really very lucky.
We are very lucky.
But I don't think we should assume that we will continue to be so.
No, and there are communities that are already feeling the strain.
I thought that. Is it like up around Blue Hill, or where is?
I've been working up in the Booth Bay Harbor, New Harbor area. In the wintertime, there's no problem because they just don't have a lot of full-time residents. But in the summer, all the oceanside
Right.
properties, small, I mean, and some of them want to grow a garden. It's like, oh, no, you can't do that. We don't have that kind of water.
Wow. So that's another factor, population growth,
Yes.
all that stuff. And Maine has seen a huge influx since the pandemic.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And then we get another huge influx that's temporary in the summer.
Right.
In some summers, we do have the water, like last summer, but some more summers we don't have the water, and it just puts a strain on a lot of the smaller, particularly coastal.
Right.
There isn't a good sand and gravel aquifer between Brunswick and Topsom and I think Belfast. So everybody in between is all struggling with like small bedrock aquifers.
Oh, yeah. And that makes sense.
Yeah, we're
'cause
at 25 gallons a minute well, 50-gallon minute well. That sounds like a lot, which it is for one household, but it's not a lot for a community.
Right, right. With regard to length of contract.
I think your 5 years is reasonable. At the outside, 10 years is not too outrageous for most communities. But 45 years, I mean, when you go to sign a mortgage for 30 years, you should be shaking in your boots. This is a long time of your life.
Right.
And in the life of your community. 45, so many things can happen in 45 years.
Absolutely.
Huge, an event of contamination of a well.
Yeah, and put in perspective, like I remember when the Freiburg was first faced with the prospect of a 45-year contract, being in that meeting with the PUC and everything, and 11-year-old Luke
Yeah.
getting up to the mic and saying, "I'll be in my 50s when this contract finishes."
Yes.
You know, which is kind of mind-boggling when you
Right.
have this kid telling you that.
Right, and what individual person signs a contract for 45 years?
That's nuts, yeah. And in the meantime, as we were talking about earlier, so what happens, and we face this with our ordinance in Denmark, because as you know, in February of 22, was it, that Nestle sold to Blue Triton?
I believe so.
Was it 22 or 20? I can't, time goes so quickly.
It wasn't
but
23, it was before that.
But it was just after we had renewed a 5-year permit with Nestle.
Right.
So in December, and 2 months later, it's a different company. And so one of the things that we wanted to address when we're reviewing our ordinance was, what about transfer of sale? Do you just like slip right into that 5-year permit? And it's a instead of a multinational corporation, it's a hedge fund?
Yeah.
Really? You know, I mean,
Right. Tell the different mindset and different goals. for the
Right.
two entities.
Right. So that could happen how many times in the course of 45 years?
Quite a number. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think how long Nestle owned it before they sold. Keep thinking it's like in the order of 20-something years, maybe.
Most people have no idea of those kind of exchanges,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And in Denmark, it was after the fact, sort of, and it just... and
Right, yeah,
so-
they didn't write you a letter and let you know.
Well, I don't know what they did. I
Yeah.
assume there was some correspondence with the town, but if this happens again, what sort of things do we have in place that are going to allow us to know who's coming in and what their track record is? Because I guess to my understanding, like a lot of hedge funds or private equity don't stay around a long time. There's a lot of, or they don't keep necessarily.
Right, yeah, they don't seem to be in it for the long haul.
Right. So, there's so much to this ordinance to consider. There is monitoring. I mean, that's in the ordinance. That's a requirement. So
Yep.
that's a good thing. I don't know that Freiburg has that kind of oversight, do they?
I don't know, because it's a water company.
Right.
They haven't had, I mean, there's no legal requirement from the drinking water program that they,
That's interesting.
yeah. They found to do their own wells in terms of
Right.
monitoring and report what they withdraw. But for a well that they don't own, technically, they basically sold, I'm not sure what the rules are.
Right, right. And I think the Denmark ordinance, that was a requirement too, that there be those monitoring wells that
Yes.
were a mix of domestic wells, dug wells,
Yep.
and drilled wells, and just to be able to know how things were reacting. That's where we get the alert and action levels, et cetera.
Yes.
But some of those have dropped off the rolls. People move, people sell their property, people don't necessarily want it to be monitored. So it's tricky, like how do you keep
All the data together.
right,
Because data
Right.
gaps can make it harder to analyze. It
can't
should be
measure.
data-driven.
right.
Right.
There's one aquifer in town.
Sure. Well, no, there's 6 or 7, but this is the major one. And if you say that nobody's going to pump
Right,
that, that's fine.
excluding
But somebody
the-
could say, hey, I want to go in there and pump 20,000 gallons a year out of one of these small ones.
Okay, so if we're just talking about the Cold Spring aquifer,
Yep.
and we put a cap on that,
Which there is right now, basically.
no, there's not.
There's
only a
not
cap
in the
on-
ordinance, there's
Well,
not. It's in the permit.
The permit is capped, right? Okay, so right.
But
There's
the
no other
ordinance
permit to you
doesn't
right
cap
now.
it.
Right, but
Right.
that's the whole point of
This is
putting
our
it,
point.
Right, so if you want to cap the aquifer, you want to cap that one aquifer?
let's cap the aquifer. I
Yeah.
think that makes sense.
Let's-
But I'm
let's
just wondering,
say it
So
that
if
way.
there's
how we
somebody
ever
else-
managed to permit something that was so far above what the Maine Geological Survey.
So, because what I believe happened, right, because I wasn't here and neither were you, right, was that they performed the pumping tests. They gave data and said, here's how the aquifer is acting after this many years of pump tests, right? And here's what we're seeing. So here's what and whoever looked at that data and said, yes, this is valid, and that's how they got to it. That's my assumption, but I don't know, I wasn't here.
Right, so I guess to me, that just sort of adds to the case for having a townwide cap, because we're already so far above what the Maine Geological Survey is saying.
But they're not necessarily correct.
Well,
But if
I
we're
don't
not
know
gonna
what that's-
believe the Maine Geological Survey, then who are we gonna, we're gonna?
I think
basis.
there's enough coming out already, what, 105 million?
But that's based on what? That's your opinion. You're not a geologist, you're not, I'm saying
It's
you're.
also based on years of observing Long Pond, Andy, and seeing what large-scale pumping is doing in other parts of the country, you know?
What happens in other parts of the country has nothing to do with what's happening here.
That's not absolutely true.
We've also just gone around things like, should there be real-time reporting, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
But we're doing the best we can. That's.
Yep, it is. It's hard. You're a small community where you're up against an entity that has monetary resources that are way beyond
Right.
what a normal
Right.
small town can come up with.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was a really interesting conversation.
Oh, it was great talking with you, Kathy, and really good to see you again. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.